All right, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores. I have some interesting Washington Commanders rumors today. Just want to go ahead and let y'all know ahead of time, again, like I try to do, just to let you know, all rumors, all these names are available. Should we go after these guys? We are not attached to any of these guys yet. I'm just asking questions. We're going to debate about it in the comment section, of course. But we're here to talk about how Diontae Johnson just got waived by the Ravens. We're going to talk about Odell Beckham Jr. being available. And also, Garrett Wilson and Myles Garrett both seem very disgruntled with their current teams and may be available for trade in 2025. We're going to talk about all of them, along with a couple of other players as well. But before we get into everything, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up and supporting every video. And of course, make sure you pull up for this upcoming live stream against the Philadelphia Eagles. You already know I'm going to be live streaming the entire game, play-by-play analysis and everything. I'm super excited. Hopefully, KJ Osborne will play and contribute a lot because we need him right now. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so before we dive into all of the different players that are available for the Commanders, if they want to go get them, again, just to let y'all know right now, there have been no reports that we're interested in either of these guys necessarily. I've seen some fake reports out there, but I'm not even going to get into that right now. We're just going to give you the quick injury update for this upcoming Eagles game on Sunday. I could probably give like a big final one maybe tomorrow or something like that. Because, you know, my Georgia Bulldogs on vacation. We got a bye week with that number 2 seed, so we're chilling. We're going to watch all of the other peasants play against each other in the college football playoffs this weekend. But either way, along with ruling out Jonathan Allen, so he's officially out versus the Eagles. It's already done. No Jonathan Allen versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Commanders also listed tight end Zach Ertz and safety Jeremy Chin as questionable in that Sunday game versus the Eagles. Both suffered concussions in Washington's win versus New Orleans last weekend. And Jonathan Allen not playing this week is, you know, you kind of assume that. I've been telling y'all that for the past few days, but potentially getting them back for the last 2 games of the season and the playoffs could be big time for us. I already talked about that in a couple of videos ago where I broke down exactly what Jonathan Allen brings to this defensive line that nobody else on this roster does. Between Deron Payne, Johnny Newton, like those guys, even like Sheldon Day has been good for us this season, just off the couch basically. But Jonathan Allen does a specific thing, that 2-gapping, stopping the run and stuff like that. That's his thing. And I did a whole deep dive, like a whole explanation of what that exactly is a couple of videos ago. If you want to go check that out. But we're going to move past that here because I know people probably came to click on this video for the rumors. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to go ahead and give y'all the injury report. So again, just to let you know, Jonathan Allen, John Conn reported that he could be back as soon as the Falcons game. So he may be ready to play next week against the Falcons, even though he's not ready to play this week against the Eagles. We just activated his 21-day practice window for off of the injured reserve just a few days ago. So I'm not surprised there. And just to let you know, as far as Jeremy Chin and Zach Ertz, questionable is amazing. That's way better than doubtful or out because, again, like I've been saying all week in all of my videos, typically, not even typically, 100% of the time when players have suffered concussions for the Washington Commanders this 2024 season, they miss the following game. Somehow Zach Ertz and Jeremy Chin seem to be about to break that pattern at the same time in the same week, potentially. They're both questionable, not saying that they're guaranteed to play, but it could have been doubtful, it could have been out, just like Jonathan Allen is out. And then you have other names that were on the injury report, like Cleveland Farrell, John Bates, Samuel Cosme, backup center Michael Dieter, Dante Fowler, kicker Zane Gonzalez, wide receiver Luke McCaffrey, and defensive tackle Deron Payne. All of those guys are good to go. Not even questionable. Full goes for this upcoming game against the Eagles. Out of all of those names I just gave you, Cleveland Farrell was the only one that practice limited today, as in Friday, December 20th. Everybody else was at least a full participant on Friday, today's practice. So everybody's good to go. I mean, it's hard to say anybody's 100% healthy at this point in an NFL season, but they're as healthy as healthy can get for an NFL standard. Now, moving on, speaking of injuries, with Noah Brown out for a while, let's talk about Diontae Johnson. Adam Schefter reported and tweeted at 4:01 p.m., which is the catalyst for this whole video, that the Ravens have now waived wide receiver Diontae Johnson. They are sick of his mess. On top of all of the on and off the field issues that he's had as far as bringing drama to the team, getting suspended. We're going to dive into that soon, like the whole chronological order of the events that took place with Diontae Johnson since he got to the Ravens. Above all of that, he played 39 snaps and only had one catch for 6 yards. Like, somebody literally put up a highlight reel of Diontae Johnson's highlights from since he was on the Ravens, and it was literally like a 7-second clip. And of course, it was really funny because he made it, like, the way he titled it, it was like Diontae Johnson goes crazy for the Ravens. It's like a little quick 7-second clip. But either way, Diontae Johnson will now go to waivers and can be claimed as of Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So we would not be able to, like, pick him up right now, even if we wanted to. And again, I have heard no reports that we are interested in Diontae Johnson just yet. I mean, we could have easily have traded for him before he went to the Ravens. So if we weren't interested in, more than likely we're not interested now, especially after all of this, all of the off the field stuff going on. But he also had some slight off the field stuff going on with the Panthers. That's probably why the Commanders stayed away from him in the trade market. And then it's probably even worse now. But either way, even if we were to claim him today or try to get him, you wouldn't actually be able to get him until Monday by 4 p.m. Eastern time. You technically can't even claim him until Monday. So you can be interested today all you want, but you got to wait until after all of the games except for the Monday night game to try to get him. And then even then, I mean, like how we signed Noah Brown right before the Buccaneers game, he didn't play in that game. KJ Osborne, we signed him right before the Saints game, he didn't play in that Saints game. Whenever we bring in receivers, whether it's just this is naturally what happens in the NFL, or if it's a Cliff Kingsbury offense and his system is like maybe harder to grasp than other typical receivers, but whenever we sign a receiver right before the season starts or mid-season, that guy has to at least miss the next game to be able to even be playable and learn the offense enough to where we can even throw him on the field. So even if you were to claim Diontae Johnson, which I'm saying again, not very likely right now, but even if we were to claim him on Monday and still get him, he more than likely would not play against the Falcons, and then maybe he'd be available for the Cowboys. That's best case scenario, even if we were interested in him. And that's even if you're going to get anything out of him at this point as well. But of course, you have to be ready for the attitude problems like I've already given y'all. Don't forget that even before he left the Panthers, he threw his entire team under the bus after a loss. I believe it was after we beat him, or it was another team after that maybe, or something like that. But he was saying things like, I did my job. I don't know about those other people. I'm paraphrasing, but that was literally what he said. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I was getting open and all of that, but the quarterback just wasn't getting me the ball. Nobody else was doing their job and things like that. Like insane stuff. I was surprised that the Ravens even traded for him after hearing that, but maybe they thought, okay, maybe his attitude problems are rooted in the fact that he's losing, not just that's who he is. He's just an attitude, just a walking attitude problem no matter where he's at, no matter his environment. Well, the Ravens found out the hard way that he actually is that. I mean, he barely played for the Ravens, and in that time, only, again, one catch for 6 yards over 4 games, and he refused to enter the team's home matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles when they wanted to play him, and then he got suspended in last Sunday's game against the New York Giants because of his actions in that Philadelphia Eagles game. Even before then, he had all sorts of drama, but the Eagles game was crazy because he literally refused to go into the game. What wide receiver refuses to play? I thought wide receivers, if anything, their biggest problem was that they wanted too much shine. They wanted to be the star of the show, center stage. They want all of the attention on them. I've never seen a wide receiver not want to go out there and get the ball. That's amazing. That's the complete opposite. And so, just to remind y'all, the Ravens acquired Diontae Johnson and a 6th-round pick from the Panthers on October 29th for a 5th-round pick. And that's when I knew we could not have been interested in Diontae Johnson, because that price was so cheap that I just knew, oh yeah, the Commanders just didn't want him. They weren't interested in him. And so but at the same time, the Panthers had to agree to absorb part of Johnson's contract. So the Ravens didn't even have to pay him much money once he got there. But ultimately, any draft pick they lost and any money that they paid him was not worth it after whatever just happened. I mean, shouts out to Jeremy Fowler. I completely agree. No other way around it. Diontae Johnson just lit millions of dollars on fire. Was set to be a top 25 free agent before the issues he just had in Baltimore. He literally could have just chilled, just boycotted the rest of the season, and had potential to make more money in the offseason 2025 by the time we get to March than whatever he just did just now. This was just like worst case scenario. He would have been better off tearing an ACL than having these off the field issues. So this is crazy. And you know, at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie, I hope the Panthers end up claiming him and bringing him back right back to the bottom of the NFL, because clearly you didn't want to play for a playoff contender, so you must like losing. You went to the Ravens, who were a Super Bowl contender when you first got there, and it's still at the very least, even after, you know, an awkward last couple of weeks, you know, last few weeks really, where they've gone from like top 3 in the power rankings to still top 10. They're still a playoff contender. You didn't want to be there. You didn't want to even step on the field for them. I don't understand what you want. Like, honestly, from Diontae Johnson's point of view, what do you want? You went from the Panthers to the Ravens. Better quarterback, better organization, better defense, everything. What exactly are you asking for? The Ravens are poised to play postseason football in January. I literally don't know what you want. Maybe he wants like a long-term contract, but you got to go out there and prove to people that you deserve that contract. I don't know what it is. I'm just throwing ideas out there. Again, this is a player that, I mean, it's up to y'all. Let me know in the comment section if you want Diontae Johnson. I'm to the point where I'm out on him. First of all, with any player that we're going to talk about today, I may not remember to say it after every player, but when in doubt, in Adam Peters, I trust. He gets the longest, the biggest benefit of the doubt from me. Any player that he decides to sign or not to sign, I'm with him because he hasn't missed yet. Every time we think maybe he missed, he hasn't missed. He's been shooting 100% from the field basically so far since he's gotten here way back in February. So Diontae Johnson, I personally don't really want him, but if Adam Peters decides to sign him, let's do it. Maybe he figures something out. Maybe they talk man to man and he found out what was going on in Carolina and in Baltimore, and somehow we can fix that here in Washington. I don't know. But either way, how about another wide receiver? Because it's not just Diontae Johnson that's available. That's a high-profile wide receiver. How about the Dolphins and 3-time Pro Bowler wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. Mutually agreed to part ways all the way back 7 days ago, exactly today, last week on Friday. Beckham is hoping for more opportunities elsewhere, and the team is granting his release. He'll be on waivers until Monday. This is pretty much a similar situation as who we just signed, KJ Osborne from the Patriots. The only difference is the Miami Dolphins are still at least trying to win right now, even though it's not looking too good for them, like playoffs wise and things like that. But they're not like eliminated. They can still try to fight for more, you know, to win more games. Hopefully, though, from the Commanders' point of view, remember, we have that 3rd round pick. So the more games they lose, the higher that 3rd round pick gets. So we got to root for the Dolphins to lose. But either way, similar to the KJ Osborne situation, Odell Beckham Jr. wants to go to a better team that's winning more right now, and also a place where he can contribute more and actually get on the field and receive targets. And I'm not going to lie, this is really interesting because, and I've seen a lot of Commanders fans debating about this and even asking me, Jacina Anderson, immediately after Odell Beckham was waived by the Dolphins, but again, he wanted to be waived. It's not like the Dolphins just decided to waive him out of nowhere. That was a mutual thing. She tweeted, teams I currently see as my fits for OBJ on the basis of head coach, quarterback, current contention, and future need with potential attrition at the position. No particular order, but she had the Seahawks number 1, the Commanders number 2, Texans 3rd, Broncos 4, Rams 5th, and then Bills 6th. She said no particular order, but she has us one of the top 6 teams that would make the most sense for Odell Beckham Jr. Shouts out to George Carmi. He brings up an interesting point. He said, I'm seeing Commanders fans talk themselves into this. Besides name recognition, what has he done over the last 3 years that entices you? He had a strong finish to the 2021 season, but then he tore his ACL and missed an entire season after that. Hasn't made an impact since. And, I mean, that's a good point, but shouts out to my boy Jamal at Let Maul Tell It. Make sure you follow him as well on Twitter. He said you should watch his tape from Baltimore. He said he was a viable weapon all season for Baltimore last year. He didn't just show life at the end of the year. He finished 8th in the league in yards per reception, despite not going into the year as their number 2 wide receiver, plus lacking chemistry with Lamar Jackson. And yes, if you have time to watch the All 22, you'd see what he has. Would be a compliment to Terry, but also the best, or at least the 2nd best run blocking wide receiver on the team. I ain't gonna lie. When I first heard Odell Beckham Jr. was released, I was like, nah, I think I'm good. That just sounds like a flashy name that everybody's gonna want because he's the flashy name. But after what my boy Jamal at Let Maul Tell It said, I don't know. If you took away the Odell Beckham name and I just described that exactly to you, his tweet, I would be like, hey, sign me up. A compliment to Terry McLaurin, and at the very least, the worst case scenario, he's your second best run blocking wide receiver on the team, on a team that loves to run the ball, especially to the outside, not only with the running backs, not even just in the screen game, but with their quarterback as well, with quarterback design runs. I feel like, why not sign up for that, especially if he's very cheap? So, hey, man, I'm not going to lie. I mean, you can make this argument for anybody except for Diontae Johnson because of the attitude problems. You can honestly just take the easy way out and say, hey, I'll take any of these guys if they're coming for a veteran minimum. But I truly mean that with Odell Beckham Jr. Again, that feels like a cop-out, honestly, but you can actually say that with Odell Beckham. Honestly, I would give him a chance. Just bring him on. Again, with Noah Brown out, Zach Ertz is banged up, Austin Eckler's gone for a while. Remember, we lost our second, third, and fourth leading receivers this year. It's just Terry McLaurin, big gap, and then everybody else that's left as offensive weapons on this team right now. KJ Osborne is not even caught up to the offense yet. We don't even exactly know what he's going to be. Just off of what I know of KJ Osborne and comparing him to Noah Brown, I think he's a slightly better version of Noah Brown, but I truly don't believe that Noah Brown nor KJ Osborne are true wide receiver twos. So even though you could argue Odell Beckham Jr. definitely is not a wide receiver 2 right now, I would take Terry McLaurin, who's a true wide receiver 1, and then an amalgamation, a collection of wide receiver 3s, and then hopefully they make up for the production of not having a wide receiver 2. So I can see the argument for maybe bringing in Odell Beckham Jr., but Josh Taylor also brings up a good point. Odell Beckham is 32 years old and has had 2 grade 3 ACL tears, and that's a good point. Then he compared him to T. Higgins, who's 25 and has a handful of grade 1 hamstring pulls, and also a slew of other injuries as well. That's a good comparison. Maybe we just go ahead and wait to go throw the entire bag at T. Higgins in the offseason. Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, man, so far, Diontae Johnson, no. Odell Beckham Jr., for a vet minimum, I'd give it a try, especially with Noah Brown hurt, Zach Ertz banged up, and Austin Eckler probably gone for a while. I mean, you could even make an argument when Noah Brown, Zach Ertz, and Austin Eckler were all fully healthy. And even with KJ Osborne on the team, how would it necessarily hurt to bring Odell Beckham Jr., except for if you're trying to give Luke McCaffrey and De'Ami Brown as many snaps as possible to get better and develop by playing meaningful snaps. Well, De'Ami Brown is getting targets at the very least out of the backfield. Luke McCaffrey is just out there running sprints. We do not target him, even as open as he is a lot of the time. He's just not getting the ball. He's being completely neglected in this offense. So I can see the argument for not signing Odell Beckham Jr. because you want the younger guys to develop, but Luke McCaffrey isn't developing even with Odell Beckham Jr. not on the team. So I say, why not? We're trying to win some playoff games here, and if Odell Beckham Jr. at the very least could come in and be a consistent run blocking wide receiver, I'd take it. Now moving on to the next player we're going to talk about, with Austin Eckler out for a while, and on top of that, Brian Robinson seems to get some type of hurt every game. Maybe not enough for him to come out of the game, but it's always some type of banged up, needs to sit on the sideline for a little while and then come back in the game later situation. Seems like literally almost every game. Remember, back on December 16th, 4 days ago, the Kansas City Chiefs released former first-round running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and it hasn't necessarily worked out for him much lately, but this is an interesting player right here. Remember, we worked out a couple of veteran running backs a few weeks ago when both Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler were hurt. So maybe we consider doing this with Austin Eckler out. And even though Brian Robinson, again, is technically healthy right now in a full go versus the Eagles and down the stretch, he's banged up every game. It wouldn't hurt to add another running back to the mix. Chris Rodriguez, even when we threw him out there a couple of weeks ago and he had a great game, it seems like we just neglected to use him against the Saints for whatever reason. And then I like Jeremy McNichols, I like Michael Wiley and those guys, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you know what I'm saying? You know, what could it hurt? At least add him to the practice squad, you know, if it's up to me. Shouts out to Ben Standig. He tweeted, I'm unsure what Clyde Edwards-Helaire has left physically after a few injuries, and that's the main thing. He's been injury prone. He may not be what he once was coming out of LSU. But either way, I wonder if the Commanders check in. He had 89 receptions over the last 4 seasons, and Washington lacks running back pass catchers without Austin Eckler, at least proven ones. And then running back coach Anthony Lynn knows Clyde Edwards-Helaire from his AFC West days, having to go against him a lot. Those are good points. Maybe they check out Clyde Edwards-Helaire, even though since he was released 4 days ago, he hasn't been already picked up by the Commanders by now. I'm assuming we're not looking into it, but you never know. Just keep a lookout for those guys. I'm just trying to bring in all of the names of veterans that once shined, that were balling out at one point in time in recent years that are suddenly available right now. We don't have a time machine. We can't take Odell Beckham Jr. back to his prime New York Giants days, or even the year that he had with the Rams where he won the Super Bowl. We can't take Diontae Johnson back a couple of years ago. We can't take Clyde Edwards-Helaire back to a few years ago. But hey, man, they're available. They were once very productive and dependable. Maybe you at least bring them into the back end of the roster, the practice squad. Maybe you give them a shot. Except for Diontae Johnson, though. That attitude problem, I don't know what to do with that. Now, granted, Dan Quinn and the culture that we have here, maybe we can figure it out. But then again, if the Ravens can't figure it out with their long sustained winning pretty much my entire lifetime and all of the people that they have in that building, from the roster to the coaching staff to the front office, all of those leaders and the great culture that they have, I don't know what other culture could fix it. So Diontae Johnson probably is just a lost cause. Now, moving on, we also have to talk about Myles Garrett. Now, these next couple of names we're going to talk about between Myles Garrett and Garrett Wilson, both of these guys, you would have to wait until the offseason to trade for them. So that's why I saved them for last. And we're not going to do like a super deep dive into these guys because we could talk about this and we can come back down this road later on, like in the offseason, maybe like February or March or something like that. But either way, the reason I'm bringing this up today, especially with Myles Garrett, because literally just today, Browns reporters are losing their minds. They're like, this is the first time I've ever seen Myles Garrett talk like this. He's never made it perfectly clear that he wants to leave the Cleveland Browns until today. I mean, literally, Daniel Oyefusi, I hope that's how you pronounce that last name. I apologize if I butchered it. But he tweeted, throughout the season, Browns defensive end Myles Garrett has said he wants to finish his career in Cleveland. But he said today, he added, quote, I'm not trying to rebuild. I'm trying to win right now. And I want to be a parent when the season is over and we have those discussions. I want them to be able to illustrate that for me so that can be something I can see in the near future because that's all we want to do, unquote. And so you even had Mary Kay Cabot who tweeted, I've never heard Myles Garrett talk like this in his 8-year career here. He said he might want out if the Browns can't show him their plan for winning right now. Quote, I need to see the plan myself. Unquote. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, this Myles Garrett potentially wanting out of Cleveland right now may really have some legs to it. And if we want to make that move, you may be able to get him for cheaper than normal because not only is he disgruntled, but now everybody knows. And once everybody knows that a player wants out of a team, out of an organization, his trade value immediately plummets. I mean, it can only decrease, but to like a certain point, he has a floor to it because it's still Myles Garrett, all pro, arguably best edge rusher in the NFL, Myles Garrett. But once everybody knows, they can pretty much just perform collusion together and everybody just be like, hey, man, if you don't offer anything more than a second round pick, then I won't either, or anything more than just one first round pick instead of a collection of first round picks. We'll all come together, the other 31 teams, and be like, this is the highest we're all going. Take it or leave it type of thing. Now, granted, somebody can backdoor somebody, but at the end of the day, knowing that Myles Garrett wants out of the Browns does not do the Browns any favors at all. If anything, that only makes it harder to get trade value in return for him. If anything, it only diminishes it. So again, Myles Garrett wants out of the Browns. He said he is not trying to rebuild. Should the Washington Commanders go ahead and get him, I mean, he will literally be the immediate top target after the season. The entire league will be trying to trade for him. It doesn't even matter with the Bengals, who have Trey Hendrickson, who's leading the NFL in sacks right now. They're going to be trying to trade for him. You're crazy if you're not one of the 31 teams not at least placing a call to see what Myles Garrett could potentially go for. Remember when DeAndre Hopkins got traded from the Texans to the Cardinals and everybody was like, wait, that was it? I'm pretty sure a lot of teams, including us with Ron Rivera and company, just assumed the Texans will be asking for too much. The Cardinals were actually the ones that made the call and then ended up getting them for way cheaper than expected. I'm not assuming Myles Garrett is going to go for anything that what DeAndre Hopkins went for, but it may be a little bit cheaper than what you think. Instead of multiple first-round picks, it can only be maybe one or maybe even just a high second-round pick. Who knows? But either way, right now Myles Garrett is tied for 5th in the league with Jonathan Grenard of the Minnesota Vikings for the 5th most sacks in the NFL with 11 sacks each right now. You have Trey Hendrickson 1, Danielle Hunter 2, TJ Watt 3rd, Nick Bottino also tied for 3rd with TJ Watt, and then again Myles Garrett tied for 5th with Jonathan Grenard. He's still playing at an elite level. Pro Football Focus even feels like he's the 3rd best edge rusher in the entire NFL, only behind Aiden Hutchinson, who's still number one, but he's been out for season for a while. But he was on the way to have a historical season before that terrible injury. Get well soon, Aiden Hutchinson. And then you also have TJ Watt, who's the second highest graded edge rusher according to Pro Football Focus. But Myles Garrett is right there in third place. And if you're filtering it to just pass rush only, they feel like he's the second best pass rushing edge rusher in the entire NFL. Again, only behind Aiden Hutchinson, who is hurt right now. So technically right now, out of all healthy available edge rushers, Pro Football Focus feels like Myles Garrett is the best in the NFL. And who knows, after the injury that Aiden Hutchinson suffered, maybe he comes back and he's not the same. He may not ever be 100% what he was this season before he got hurt. But then again, he's a great technician, so I think he'll figure it out. I think he'll be able to work around it. He's a very athletic guy, but he wasn't necessarily relying on his athleticism to be as potent of a pass rusher as he was. So I still feel confident that he'll come back and be great. But my point is, Myles Garrett, at worst, is still a top 2 edge rusher in the NFL, especially when it comes to rushing the passer. So we should definitely at least make the call. And just to let you know, 2025-wise, he's only a $19.7 million cap hit, and in 2026 he's only a $20 million cap hit. That is ridiculously cheap for a guy like Myles Garrett. That is absolutely insane. Just to let you know, annual value wise, Joey Bosa, Trey Hendrickson, Bradley Chubb, Max Crosby, Rashawn Gary, even Montez Sweat, who basically just completely finessed the Bears because he's not having a good season at all for them. He looked like it last year. They gave him the money. He came out this year. It pretty much looked like the same typical Montez Sweat we were getting. Danielle Hunter, TJ Watt, Brian Burns, Josh Hines Allen, and Nick Bosa are all making more money than him per year as of next year. Myles Garrett will be cheaper than all of those names I just listed while still playing at a top 2 edge rusher level in the NFL. That is absolutely insane value. So because of that, the Cleveland Browns are going to realize that you're trading for a top 2 edge rusher, and he's barely even making top 10 edge rusher money. He may even slightly be outside of that, like 11 or 12. They're probably going to raise his trade value because of that, what they're asking for in return. But at the same time, if everybody colludes together, maybe we won't even have to give up crazy value. And then lastly, before we get up out of here, apparently Garrett Wilson wants out of the New York Jets. I mean, he has had some interesting interviews where he says that he feels like they have a gene of losing. Because basically his explanation was, and his logic was, that the Jets, I mean, we're winning for the majority of these games, or we're at the very least in striking distance in the fourth quarters in a lot of these games, and we just always find a way to lose. So basically he said that they have a gene for losing. Basically, they're born losers. Like, they're just destined to lose no matter what they do. The way that this team is set up, the way it's built from top to bottom, whatever it is, maybe it's a curse, maybe it's some voodoo, whatever, he just feels like this team has no chance of winning because no matter what, they're always going to find a way to lose in the end, even if they're winning the entire game like they've been doing some of these games this season, winning all 3.5 quarters, find a way to lose the fourth quarter. But apparently people within Garrett Wilson's circle believe that he will request a trade from the Jets this offseason, and this is speculation as of right now from people within his circle, and he hasn't said anything, but of course he would never come out and say anything. I mean, unlike Diontae Johnson, who's over there throwing a fit, I'm pretty sure Garrett Wilson is going to try to keep everything calm and collected, everything in-house as much as possible. But somebody from his circle is potentially leaking the fact that he wants out of there. And if you were to trade for Garrett Wilson, remember, he's still on his rookie contract right now. 2025, he's only going to be a $6.5 million cap hit, y'all. That is absolutely insane. And you would get him with the freedom to potentially pick up his fifth-year option if you wanted to. So that's also a big thing. And now, granted, that fifth-year option is going to be fairly expensive, but it's not going to be as much as what he's worth on the receiver market once he becomes a free agent. So you would have Garrett Wilson for 2 years on relatively cheap contract value money right now. So if you wanted to trade for Garrett Wilson, and right now it's looking ugly for the Jets, and maybe they just give up, Aaron Rodgers dips up out of there and says, I'm done, I'm sick of this losing, and a lot of it's my fault, but I'm done. Maybe instead of forcing it and still trying to stay in win now mode like they've been doing all season, even though they've been losing all season, trading for Devontae Adams and things like that, maybe they finally just give up in the offseason, just like, all right, let's just do a full-blown rebuild, let's just reset this whole thing. Maybe they would be willing to trade away Garrett Wilson. I'm not saying it's it's very likely, but maybe he'll even force their hand. Maybe he'll want out so bad, he's like, I gotta go. Now, you can keep those legs, those arm sleeves that you be wearing, leave that in New York. Do not bring that with us. And I also saw somebody do like a photo edit of his jersey, like because he wears number 5s, and they did it like a Commanders jersey. Well, that's gonna have to change because Jaden Daniels already wears number 5. So even if we were to trade for Garrett Wilson, you're not gonna be able to wear your number 5 here. You better pick something else. It won't be number 17, Terry McLaurin. So you better find a number over there. It won't be 0, Mike Sanders still. I don't know what number he may want, but it wouldn't be either one of those. And if you ask me, depending on what the price is, Garrett Wilson, yes, please. Myles Garrett, I wouldn't necessarily say give up the whole farm for him. I wouldn't say necessarily outbid everybody, but hey, I gotta see what that Myles Garrett trade talk is looking like, or what that trade value sounding like. Please let me get in on that. And then, of course, like I already said earlier, with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, maybe why not bring him to the practice squad? At least bring him in for a tryout, see what's going on, give him a medical evaluation, see where his injury is, where his health is, and then also even going back to Odell Beckham Jr. again, vet minimum. I feel like why not? And then Diontae Johnson, no thanks. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know if you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. If you made it this far in the video, you are the GOAT. I salute you. Of course, do not leave this video without leaving a like. And also, please let me know in the comment section about all of these guys. First of all, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my points. But also, I want y'all to just straight up list Diontae Johnson, yes or no. Odell Beckham Jr., yes or no. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yes or no. Myles Garrett, next year in the offseason, yes or no. Garrett Wilson, offseason, yes or no. And let me know also, if you're saying yes for any of these guys, what's potentially the most you're willing to give up for any of them as well. I'm just trying to see something. I'm trying to get a grasp of what everybody feels like could potentially, what you could potentially get for Myles Garrett, or potentially get for Garrett Wilson, or even for like Odell Beckham Jr., what you think you would have to pay him. You don't have to trade for him. You just got to pick him up, but what would you have to pay him? And definitely let me know how y'all feel about Diontae Johnson situation. Are you willing to ignore his off the field and even on the field antics, on the sideline antics to be specifically, refusing to go back into the game to bring in a talent like him who's still pretty good and can help us win? Let me know how you feel about all of that. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. Do not leave this video without leaving a like. I'm out.